MVP. Golf swung, right field. Forget about it. Rangers strike first. Goes after the first one. Drills a high fly ball. Left center field. This game is tied. From Javier. Seager hits a high fly ball. Deep right field. A bomb into first. Swing. Drive. It's tied. Seager smashes the ball down the line. Goodbye. Now Seager to right center field. Way back there. Gone again. Corey Seager does it again. It's Rangers win the World Series. The Willie Mays Most Valuable Player Trophy presented by Chevrolet. Is there any doubt? Corey Seager.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of Right on Rangers Live, coming at you on a Wednesday night, ready to talk a little Texas Rangers baseball. Lord knows we've talked the Luka story to death, Dallas Mavs, and all of that good stuff. I'm sure it'll come up naturally as we go along, but we're going to talk some Texas Rangers baseball tonight, and I'm looking forward to it. Some big news: Elvis Andrus getting selected to the Texas Rangers Baseball Hall of Fame. We're going to talk Elvis. Of course, Elvis going to be on the Rangers Sports Network this year. Going to be great to see him as a part of that broadcast. We'll talk Elvis highlights. We'll go down memory lane. All things Elvis Andrus should be fun. And then we've got some other news for you, some little minor transactions here and there. Nothing terribly exciting, but nevertheless, we'll give it the run through and so much more. Of course, we'll take all of your questions and comments along the way. Appreciate all of y'all hanging out. First of all, here at Right on Rangers, y'all know we cover everything sports, but we put a big emphasis on all the teams we love from the great state of Texas, including the Rangers and especially the Rangers during the MLB offseason. Thank you for choosing Right on Rangers for all of your Texas Rangers content. Let's get into it. What's good, everybody? Hope you're having a good week so far. Let's start with this. Elvis Andrus inducted into the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame. News coming out today that Andrus will be the 27th member of the Texas Rangers Baseball Hall of Fame. June 28th, by the way, mark your calendars on that. June 28th is the ceremony. Should be great. I believe that's going to be prior to I think that's the Mariners game at Globe Life Field. Andrus, of course, retired as a Ranger back in September. Had a little fun, if you will, ceremony of sorts, a little fun post or pregame, I believe it was, presser with Ron Washington when the Angels came to town. That was a lot of fun. Holds the franchise record for most games started at shortstop, leads in stolen bases with 305, two-time All-Star, instrumental, of course, in the Rangers going to back-to-back pennants, back-to-back World Series in the 2010 and 2011 seasons. Really, really glad to see Elvis getting honored in this way. I think Elvis epitomized those Rangers squads back in the 2010 and 2011 seasons. The life, the energy. Honestly, when I think about Elvis, I think a lot about Luka, just the joy in which both of those two players play the game. Hard not to think about that comparison and that connection. Elvis and Beltre, of course, we loved watching those two. That brotherly connection that they had going back and forth with each other all those years. I will say it's going to be a really, really fun season ahead with not only Elvis Andrus getting elected to the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame, inducted into that elite class, but also there will be an Adrian Beltre statue unveiled on August 22nd, 2025. This year, it'll be located, I believe, over like in the Northeast Plaza, if you're familiar with Globe Life. He will join Nolan Ryan and Pudge Rodriguez as the only players with statues at the ballpark. That's pretty cool for Adrian Beltre, getting his own statue outside of Globe Life to go along with those two other Rangers legends. Really, really excited to see that statue in person. I'm sure I'll get the reveal on TV, but seeing it in person is another thing. Hopefully they can get this statue right for Beltre. I'm not saying they didn't do a good job with Pudge or Nolan Ryan, but let's be real. The statues that you see people unveiling nowadays, I mean, if I could just keep it 100 with y'all, even the Dirk Nowitzki statue that's outside of AAC, while you know I love Dirk and appreciate the legendary status that he holds with the Mavericks franchise, I can't say I feel like they nailed the statue 100%. I don't know if any of y'all Mavs fans and Rangers fans can back me up on that one. I feel like the Dirk statue left just a little something to be desired. I love the fadeaway. I just feel like in terms of the realistic nature of it, they could have done a little better. It's hard. I get it to nail it perfectly, but I just hope that they do Adrian Beltre justice. That's all I'm trying to say. All right. We started out with some news. Beltre, Andrus. We're going to get more into Elvis here, but let me take comments and let me say what's up to y'all here. TikTok, what's good? Let me see if I can rewind, get to anything that I might have missed along the way. Appreciate y'all. Jake Berger on MLB underrated list. Okay. I do think Berger and the 60 home runs that he's accumulated over the last 2 seasons. I mean, look, 30 home run dude, basically. I think he is a little bit underrated. Look, I know the WAR numbers. WAR is such a big thing in baseball these days. I know the WAR numbers for Berger are a little bit low, but I will say I do think that is going to be a huge bat in the lineup. I'm really excited to see what Jake Berger does. We keep going. All right, think we almost good. We go into the postseason in 2025. That's actually a good segue. So Baseball Prospectus comes out with projections, and I think on February 3rd, a couple days ago, they projected the Texas Rangers, Baseball Prospectus did, the Texas Rangers winning the American League West Division with an average of 89.3 wins. So right around 90 wins. The projections also placed the Houston Astros and the Mariners very, very close in contention. We're talking about the Baseball Prospectus projections that came out a couple days ago. I believe Astros were at about 87 wins and the Mariners were at 86. So Baseball Prospectus envisioning a very tight AL West race with the Rangers ultimately coming out on top by a couple of games. The Rangers pitching staff and just the anticipated bounce back performances, right? You had a ton of Rangers regressing last year. I do think that those two things alone, right? From players like, you think about Doley, think about Jonah Heim, even think about guys like Evan Carter who were injured. And before the injury, of course, Carter struggled mightily in the 2024 season. Perhaps we can connect the two things together. But if you get bounce back years from those guys, along with Jacob deGrom being back, Nate Eovaldi being back, and then having some very quality arms to go along with those two aces, I just don't think it's at all out of left field for the Rangers to win the AL West and to win 90-plus games in doing so. I am very high on the Rangers. I mean, look, I know that maybe comes off as a homer take to all my non-Rangers fans out there that may be listening, but I do think when you look at this team as objectively as possible, there's a ton of reason to believe that they bounce back in 2025. We keep going. 90 games, I really do feel like. I think the Rangers were at like 86.5. Wasn't that the over-under that I mentioned? I believe Vegas has us set at like 86.5 or something like that. I think they're going to fly over that total. I really do feel confident Rangers are a 90-win team this year. Of course, if you get like some crazy major injuries, that could go out the window a little bit. But assuming relative health, like relatively healthy squad, I really do feel like the team is primed for 90-plus wins. All right, we keep going here. Let me check out some comments from YouTube. Appreciate all of y'all. No shot the Rangers win the division this year. I mean, look, I know that we got to be a little extreme to make a point, but no shot. Let's go. That's just straight up lying. The Rangers, like crazy enough, I keep telling y'all this. The Rangers had a really pretty bad 2024, right? You had injuries, you had guys regressing like crazy, and the Rangers were still in the race in August. After a really poor first 3-4 months of the season of the year, the Rangers were in the beginning of August and still had a shot to win the AL West. That was the craziest thing to me as I took a step back from 2024 after the season came to an end. It was like, for how bad we were at different points and how bad the Rangers were getting dogged on by so many different fans around the game, like they actually had a shot to make the playoffs, and it was August. So for me, if you consider that fact, along with the things that I just mentioned, the pitching staff, the fact that you're going to get bounce back years from some of these guys, I don't know how you can say no shot. Maybe the Rangers get the injury bug again. Maybe you don't get as many guys turning it around as you're envisioning, but let's not pretend like the Astros and the Mariners at this point right now in the offseason are two juggernauts that just cannot at all be contended with in the AL West. I think you can make an argument that the Astros got worse this year. I don't necessarily feel like they got better. Maybe you could say that they're exactly the same when you consider everything, but you lose Bregman, you lose Kyle Tucker. I know they're able to add a couple of other guys in the mix, but those are two huge losses. The Mariners, look, you've got a great pitching staff. I do think the Mariners pitching staff is one of the best in baseball. You know, Logan, Gilbert, Kirby, all those guys. But the offense was terrible last year. And I don't think you did a whole lot in the offseason to really improve it in a major way. They added a couple of pieces here and there, but the Mariners offense was atrocious last year. It's a big reason why they missed the playoffs. So to say no shot, I know we got to go with hyperbole sometimes to make a point, but the Rangers very much have a shot to win the AL West, and I think it's a pretty good one. We keep going. Interested to see how the outfield shakes out, particularly center. I think Carter will play there most games. They have talked about how they're going to ease Evan Carter back into action. So I definitely feel like they need to give him everyday potential out there. I feel like Evan Carter is your number one prospect. I mean, number one, number two, Wyatt Langford, Evan Carter, in no particular order. Like, why would you want your number one prospect to be a platoon guy? I know I've said this before for all of my longtime listeners out there. I've been on this so many different times on this rant. I would be very disappointed if they make Evan Carter into a straight up platoon guy again in the 2025 season. I think the way things are shaping out, you're going to see Evan Carter eventually playing every day. I feel like you've got to give him a shot to hit lefties. And, you know, Leody Taveras, you wonder what they're going to do and just how it's all going to work out with Leody. They definitely mentioned in the exit interview, CY especially, that Leody needs to take that next step in his development. I have my doubts on whether or not that's going to happen. But Leody Taveras does continue to be in trade talks. According to a couple of different sources, teams have been inquiring about Leody. I don't know that it got specific on which teams. Of course, no potential trades have been thrown out there or anything like that. But there have been teams inquiring about Leody Taveras. I don't think you're going to be able to get a whole lot for Leody. I see a couple of y'all saying we're not going to get anything from him. I definitely have my doubts as well. What could we actually get for Leody? But I feel like at this point, Leody and Evan Carter last year, neither one of them could play or were playable against lefties. I just don't see how that works. So I do wonder what Leody's future is with the team. Like, are you really going to keep Jock, Leody, and Evan Carter in the same outfield? mean, Jock Peterson had already been getting platooned last year against lefties. So you've got 3 guys that can't hit against lefties. And look, Jock didn't really get a chance to hit lefties last year, but I just don't see how that's a great strategy moving into the year. You've got 3 guys that mightily struggled out in the outfield against lefties. I don't know if that's going to work. I personally would have loved to have seen them move on from Leote, go out, and maybe you get somebody that can hit the lefties better. Maybe you just call up someone, Dustin Harris, to join the squad and be that guy that you can plug in there when needed against lefties. I don't know. You definitely, I feel like, have got a little bit of a problem on your hands with 3 dudes in the outfield at this point that are not the best hitters against left-handed pitching. I'm really curious to see what happens. I do think ultimately you got to bite the bullet and you got to give Evan Carter a chance to develop. But I really feel like you've got to get rid of one of those guys, and it can't be Evan Carter and it can't be Jock Peterson. Leote, I think, is the natural guy that you move out and you go get somebody, an outfielder preferably, that can hit the lefties. That would be my preference 100%. We keep going here. DeGrom somewhat healthy, and y'all have a chance to be honest. Derek, what's good, man? Thanks for tuning in. Look, the health of DeGrom is an absolute factor in all of this, and we're going to assume the best. If you get a big injury to DeGrom or Evo, things can go sideways quickly. I will say this, the Rangers have plenty of depth at starting pitching at this point. I mean, you've got about 7 different guys that can step into the starting rotation. And just naming them off, we got DeGrom, right? You've got Evo, you've got Malley, you've got Bradford, you've got Dane Dunning, you've got John Gray, you've got Kumar Rocker, you've got Jack Leiter. You've got plenty of guys out there if somebody does go down. I would be more worried about a DeGrom injury that affects the postseason. You want to absolutely have DeGrom back for October. I actually feel like if DeGrom were to go down or if Evo were to go down, the Rangers could probably stomach it and survive. It's not ideal, but I don't think this team is, one DeGrom injury away or one Evo injury away from being uncompetitive. I think they've actually got a pretty deep starting rotation. You know what? It does count on guys like Kumar Rocker, maybe Jack Leiter stepping up a little bit. But you've got guys that can step in if somebody, especially one of the big boys, goes down. So I really do feel like even if DeGrom were to get hurt, God forbid, nobody wants to see that. You definitely have the depth to at least weather the storm for a couple of months or a month, whatever it is, whatever the injury would be. I think you could make it happen. It's October that I start getting a little nervous. John, what's good, man? I am absolutely ready for baseball as well. By the way, in the news, Rangers caravan is on its way to Surprise. Just the little things in life. I know that's not that big of a deal, but when I see news like that come across my screen, it just makes my day a little bit better. The equipment truck departed for Surprise. That was on January 30th, so I got to think it's probably there by now. Getting the team ready for spring training in Arizona. Love it. Looking forward to going down there for a game too. Yeah, John, I did see that. We were just talking about Baseball Prospectus coming out and projecting a little under 90 wins for the Rangers, winning the AL West by a couple of games over the Astros and the Mariners. Look, I know that we have all had this sentiment as Rangers fans the entire offseason, especially as things unfolded. We got Evo back. We signed Jock. Those are probably 2. Throw in the Chris Martin deal. Those to me are probably the 3 biggest signings of the offseason. When we saw those unfold, I think most of us felt pretty positive about the Rangers' chances of being competitive in the AL West. We had a shot, like I was saying just about 3 or 4 minutes ago. We had a shot in August last year to still make the playoffs with the abysmal offense that the Rangers had at times, the pitching problems that they had. We had a chance in August to still potentially make the playoffs and win the AL West. You give me a revamped lineup like this, and you reinforce the starting pitching rotation with the addition of DeGrom, a healthy DeGrom, and a couple of other guys up and coming. I feel really good about the opportunity. Yeah, and then this is a good point too, Natalie. Thanks for bringing this up. We have pitching prospects that are in the mix. Like you've got Teodo down on the farm that you can call up. You've got a lot of really high quality depth at the starting pitching spot. And I really do think, a major injury aside, if a guy needs to go out for a few weeks, a month and a half, whatever the case may be, I do feel like the Rangers are set up well to be able to handle that and the season to not be totally lost. And baseball is always like that, right? I mean, unlike basketball, even unlike football, you can usually weather a baseball injury. I mean, there are some cases where it definitely can get dicey if the injuries start mounting up. But if one guy goes out, with baseball being a 9-position sport and kind of being so individually matchup-based pitcher, batter, I do think even if the Rangers were to suffer an injury lineup or in the starting rotation, they'd probably be able to make it through at least a couple of months without things going totally sideways. We keep going. Let me get back to TikTok here. Go Rangers. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Let me scroll back a little bit here. Rangers plus 180 for the division. Is that right? I've told y'all, if you like the Rangers and you want to make a little bit of fun for yourself along the way, I really do like the 30-1 odds or whatever the Rangers were. I think it was up to like 30-1. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe it was like 25-1. I don't know. But I really do feel like the odds makers are really sleeping on the Texas Rangers at this point. I absolutely feel like they need to be given a lot more respect in the betting markets. For whatever reason, they're not. It looks like plus 2,400, so 24-1 from what it's looking like. 24-1 to win the World Series. I think I'm getting that right. I'm going to keep checking around a couple of different websites just in case, but looking like still a pretty big long shot, right? The Rangers were 50-1 when they won the World Series in 2023. Texas Rangers 25-1 on DraftKings. That's a pretty reliable source. And then division winner. Let's go to DraftKings division winner just for fun, just to see what the odds are. DraftKings has the Rangers at 2.5-1 to win the division. Astros are basically even money, and the Mariners are 2.5-1 as well. So I think you take Rangers all day long on these bets. I think Houston, there's some name value there. I think some overvaluing going on with the Astros. Look, I know we're all Astros hater here as Rangers fans and here at Right on Rangers for sure, but the Astros at even money, basically, that feels a little bit overrated to me, a little bit overvalued. I do think that this really should be pretty much a pick'em between any of the three teams at worst. The Mariners, Astros, Rangers, I think you can make an argument all three of them have pretty similar odds. I mean, Baseball Prospectus had the Rangers winning 2 more games than the Astros and the Mariners. I think 3 more than the Mariners, 2 more than the Astros. It does seem like that's pretty good value for the Rangers, considering some of the different analysis going on of the Rangers and the projections. I would definitely be going Rangers at 2.5-1 odds to win the West. To win the league, the Rangers right now looks like are 11-1, and then World Series 25-1. I like those odds. I'm going to take those odds. Let me keep going here. You're not a true, this is great. You're not a true Texan if you're supporting the cheating Astros. I can't disagree with that. Born and raised in Denton, Texas. What's good, man? Thanks for tuning in. I have to agree. Where is Josh Smith going to fit in 2025? Look, they came out, CY, Bochy, they were talking about Josh Smith, and they pretty much said Josh Smith is going to be playing 4 days a week at minimum, maybe even 5 or 6. I think they really plan on him just being bona fide Swiss Army knife, super utility guy. And when you think about it, you're going to want to give Josh Young time off. You've got Josh Smith able to play third base, able to play shortstop if Corey Seager needs a breather. They've already come out and said that Marcus Semien is going to be getting some more days off this year, not going to be probably playing all 162 games. I think he played 160 this past season. So you've got 3 dudes right there that he can fill in for. Of course, you can have him DH. I think Jock Peterson is probably going to fill that role on most days, possibly Adolis Garcia as well. And then you can have Josh Smith play the outfield. We talked last year. I don't think outfield is Josh Smith's forte. I think he's got less than 50 games outfield in his entire professional career, minors or majors. So it's not like you feel the best about Josh Smith and the defense out there in the outfield. But look, do I believe that he could do it in a pinch? Absolutely. And you may need to rest guys like Wyatt Langford. You may need to rest, like I said, Adolis Garcia, Evan Carter. There's a lot of guys eventually that you are going to have to give a day off to. And Josh Smith basically can fill in anywhere. I think they even said Josh Smith might play a little first base. So you've got an option there if Jake Berger needs a day off. So I think the plan is, besides pitcher and catcher, pretty much play Josh Smith everywhere. I mean, he's that good. They trust him that much. And look, I can't fault him. I know Josh Smith petered off a little bit at the end of last season. I think the best attribution, sorry, can't talk, long day. The best thing I could attribute to Josh Smith kind of tapering off at the end of 2024. You had never seen Josh Smith play that many games before. I mean, this was the most amount of games that he had played in a season in his career. He was essentially a full-time player. It's not shocking to me that he dropped off a little bit at the end of 2024. You add in some of the mental stuff, the mental warfare you have to go through with yourself when you're on a team that's not going to make the playoffs. Of course, you're playing for yourself. You're playing for the next contract. You're playing for pride. But it's hard. You're in those dog days of summer. The team is scuffling. I've made this point. I know these are professionals, but they are humans too. And I do feel like, to an extent, it's hard when you are totally out of playoff contention to stay 100% focused. I'm not saying that it happens to everybody, but when I look at some of the guys that trailed off at the end of the 2024 season, I don't think you have to overthink it. It's a long year, and it was an unsuccessful year for the Rangers. I do think that wears on you. Back to Josh Smith and back to the positive, though. Glad that they're going to be able to find a fit for him. Going back to what we talked about with Leote, I think they kind of have a similar predicament in the infield. So think about Ezekiel Duran. If you've got Josh Smith playing this Swiss Army knife, jack of all trades role, I don't really know where you fit in Ezekiel Duran. I personally don't know if he's going to be used as a whole lot more than maybe a defensive replacement. I don't think you're giving Zeke Duran spot starts over Josh Smith. Maybe an occasional one, but I just feel like Zeke Duran does not have much of a place on this team. You definitely need depth, and it's possible that that's just what he's going to be. Again, maybe you have him go in as a defensive replacement. He does have a freaking cannon, and he plays a pretty good infield. Not so high on Zeke Duran in the outfield, but I think he plays a pretty good left side of the infield. Not a big fan of Zeke Duran at first base either. I think I went off on this during the season. Not a big fan of that, but I do think that he is going to be a guy that ends up just being used for depth. I would have probably preferred the Rangers trade him, but they've decided to hold on to him. It doesn't look like he's going anywhere. I'd imagine he's going to be used pretty sparingly. So we'll see what happens. Leote Taveras, Zeke Duran, each kind of has a very minimal role, I think, to play in the 2025 season. We'll see what they come up with. I think a lot depends on the health of the players. One injury, and then we're maybe talking a different story. What's good? Corgo Dex, thanks for the comment. Appreciate it. Doing well. Thank you for tuning in. Hey, all fans welcome here. I mean, Rangers obviously is what we're talking primarily, but I welcome fans from all teams. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll talk ball either way. Rory, what's good? Diamondbacks versus Texas rematch. Hey, look, I could totally see both of those teams, Diamondbacks and Rangers, having really solid bounce back years. I think the Diamondbacks missing the playoffs just barely, right? The D-backs barely missed the playoffs this last year. Rangers were obviously out of it by much more. But I think both of those teams could rebound quite nicely. Diamondbacks getting Corbin Burns. I mean, you forget some of the acquisitions the Diamondbacks made. Corbin Burns, the addition of him, they added a couple of bats as well. I do think that the Rangers and the D-backs are primed for a bounce back. Really do. Seattle should win the division. Best pitching by far. Yeah, but they don't hit. Seattle had the worst. I want to say it was like either bottom 3 or the worst batting average in Major League Baseball as a team. So I don't think Seattle's got it locked up by any means. Yeah, the pitching is great. I think it's one of the better rotations in baseball. You got to be able to hit. I know in the playoffs it changes maybe a little bit, but over the course of a 162 game season, you got to be able to hit. We keep going. What are we getting in Kirby Yates? Dodgers fan. Adrian, what's good, man? Kirby Yates, I think you're just getting a really, really solid veteran presence, guy that's been there before. Really, really good stuff. He had some really nasty off-speed sink-in movement on a lot of his pitches. I loved everything we saw from Kirby Yates last year. Just was a grinder too. He would get guys on base occasionally. It wasn't often. A lot of the times I felt like 1, 2, 3 innings abounded with Kirby Yates, but when he did get someone on, you never felt nervous. You felt like he always would find a way to get out of it. So I would be very excited about Kirby Yates. I do think you got to temper expectations a little bit. Kirby probably had the best year of his career last year with the Rangers. I don't think that's going to be easily duplicated. I would imagine Kirby probably around the 2.50 ERA. If I had to put a number down on it right now, I am definitely going to miss Kirby Yates. I think a lot of Rangers fans will also. We keep going. Let's see what else we got. Mariners done. Yeah, look, the Mariners are going to be competitive, 100%, but I just don't think without a great offense, they're going to be able to do something special this year. Rangers rotation, we kind of went through that, but DeGrom, Evo, probably Tyler Mahle, Cody Bradford, and then you've got a number of different guys that you can throw in there after that. John Gray, Dane Dunning, Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker. There's definitely going to be some interesting decisions. Who is in what role? Not all those guys can be starters. I'd imagine maybe 4 of those guys end up being in the bullpen, perhaps at different points. I think they are going to eventually probably settle on a 6-man rotation, but I think you're going to have to throw some guys in the bullpen. Either that or I guess you send them down to the minors. Keep going. Let's see. Natalie says, I do think this is a big year for Taveras. Look, if you've got the gut feeling, I'll definitely go with you on it, but I don't know if there's a whole lot of evidence, of tangible evidence to point to that Leody is going to have a breakout year this year. I think we've all established Leody Taveras is a player with a lot of potential, but I don't know that we've seen anything concrete to point to that this is going to be his breakout year, but I respect the gut feeling. I surely hope that you are right. I don't root for any Rangers player to fail, but I do think that the jury's out on Leody Taveras, and I don't know how much longer he is going to be able to continue the same production and still have a big role on a major league team. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, Leody hits, 240 at best, and I think he was down more in the 225 range last year. I don't know. That's just me. Somebody says Josh Smith. Oh, Josh Smith can hit lefties. Yeah, Josh Smith had really good splits against lefties last year. At one point, it was like better than righties, if I'm not mistaken. He hit 286 against lefties last year. Like, it was up in the 300s at one point. a smaller sample size. He had 126 at-bats against lefties. Josh Smith did. And he had 36 hits. So 36 for 126, 286 average, 345 OBP. So Josh Smith, definitely a guy you trust against the lefties. And maybe that's who they throw in there when there's a lefty out in the outfield, right? If Evan Carter's not cutting it, if you've got Jock Peterson a little down on the lefties, and then Leody Taveras, he did not hit lefties at all last year. If you've got those two or three guys, those three guys, maybe Josh Smith goes to left field and you put Wyatt Langford in center. That could be something that they go to. I could definitely see that as a real possibility if Evan Carter and if Leody and Jock are all struggling against lefties going into May, going into the summer months. I think that Josh Smith could be a candidate to throw in there against the left-handed pitcher. Absolutely. We keep going. Thanks for the follows, by the way. I see a couple people followed. Really appreciate that. Thoughts on the bullpen? Don't feel awesome about it. I know Fenstermaker, Figueroa, CY are all putting on a good face. I got to imagine there's a little bit of trepidation. They're going to put on a good show and confidence for us, but you've got some guys with potential, but really you only feel super awesome about Martin, in my opinion. And maybe some of the guys from the starting rotation that are going to become longmen, like, for example, maybe John Gray is a guy who's a fifth starter, and maybe you have Dane Dunning, maybe you have him in the bullpen as a longman. They're going to have, I think, some fairly reliable guys out there, but my point is, in terms of late inning guys, Chris Martin is about the only one I really trust at this point. But you can't trust what you don't know. And I haven't seen all these guys pitch. And even in spring training, it's hard to tell exactly how a guy is going to carry over into the season. So we're going to have to see these guys pitch to start trusting them. I really do feel like that is what it's going to have to be. It doesn't look like the Rangers are going to be adding anybody else. I don't think that Kenley Jansen's on the radar. I did as much digging as I could. The Rangers have not been linked to Kenley Jansen at all. So I don't think that they're going to be out there getting somebody else to add to the bullpen. Could be wrong. Maybe CY and Fenstermaker have something up their sleeves. I know some people were throwing out Mark Church. I'd like Mark Church, but again, a guy that hasn't been there in a lot of big moments. I just don't know if you can throw Mark Church into the pressure cooker and expect super positive results. I'm not a big fan of doing that with the relief pitchers coming up from AAA. Hey, let's make him an eighth inning guy. It's a lot of pressure. When you bring up young guys like this, I mean, if you absolutely have to, of course, you got to do what's best for the team. But I'd much rather see Mark Church pitch in the sixth inning, the seventh inning, get some MLB experience before we try and throw him into any kind of significant role. Then looking at the rest, Hobie Milner, again, a guy with possibilities. Daniel Robert, I know a lot of people are high on him. I think he is going to be a really, really quality arm for us in the pen. But again, you don't trust what you don't know. And I really have not watched Daniel Robert in super high pressure situations to feel great about his late inning use. So I've got to be real. Keep it 100. I'm feeling a little nervous about this Rangers bullpen at this point. I hope that they prove me wrong. I'm going to trust CY, but I don't think I can in good faith get on a pod and say this is going to be a great bullpen. I just don't feel it quite yet. I hope that it's a great bullpen. I think that it can be. I think Chris Young and Fenstermaker, all those guys, they appear to have a bit of a knack for picking out good pitching. So I'm going to trust them. We'll see what happens. I know I was saying Daniel Robert earlier. Robert Garcia, if I made that mistake, my apologies. Robert Garcia from the Nationals, lefty, of course, acquired in that Nate Lowe trade. We'll see what Robert Garcia ends up doing and what role he ends up taking on for the Rangers. I'll be very interested. We keep going. What's good, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. Let me see if I got anything else that I missed out on. I want a guy just to not blow a 3-run lead. It was dicey at times for the Rangers last year. Like, who can you put in not named Robertson or Yates that is not going to blow a 3-run lead? I totally have to agree. I don't think Robertson is going to get re-signed. Last I heard, he was in talks with the Cubs. That was the last I heard. Preston says, I think the bullpen's going to overperform, surprise everybody. Yeah, I could see that happening. I think Kirby Yates and David Robertson are perfect examples of that. I personally just am being a little bit cautious. That's all. I would have liked the Rangers to have added one more arm out there, preferably a closer. Then you can have Martin pitch in the 8th inning. I'm a little bit hesitant on our bullpen, but I surely do hope that I'm proven wrong. That would be great. Let me see what else I missed here. Jock overpay? I don't think so, John. I don't think that Jock was an overpay. $18.5 million. I think that the way the market's going, I can't say Jock's an overpay. $20 million or more would have felt a little bit like an overpay, but Jock Peterson has some really good numbers. You line up some of his stats in the entire landscape of baseball and offensive players, he's up there. So for me, I absolutely think that Jock Peterson deal was a solid one. Sure, if you could get him for $15 million a year, that would have been great. We weren't going to get him trying to underpay. I think you had to spend a little bit more, maybe than what you were comfortable with to get Jock. I actually feel pretty comfortable with the deal. EBL, what's good? Enjoy Luka, by the way. Dodgers, look, I know that they are looking pretty fierce this year as well. We've talked Dodgers here on the show. It's a good time to be an LA fan, isn't it? As long as the Astros don't win. There is our uniting bond right there, my friend. As long as the Astros don't win, it's good with me. I can kind of take that up myself. Like once the Astros were out of the playoffs last year, you kind of breathe a little bit easier. You're a little lighter. Okay, good. At least they didn't get it this year. I totally get that. Let me keep going. Jake Berger going to have a great year. I feel that too. I think he is going to be a nice power bat for the Rangers. I mean, the Rangers last year, clearly they had some guys with pop, and you had some guys, Corey Seager, of course, that hit over 30 homers. I think Seager was exactly 30 homers. And then Dolly was up there as well. And you had a couple other guys that were getting up in their totals for homers. But I am glad to see the Rangers add pop. The long ball, I felt like, was something missing last year. You saw it a lot more in 2023. It felt like it just barely came around in 2024. So I am 100% pumped that we've added Berger and Jock Peterson to add that extra pop to the lineup. No doubt. Rocker's going to do great. I do think for Rocker, kind of like what I said with Church, I'd really like to see them start out low-key with Rocker. Dude doesn't need to be like our number 3 starter. How about just like a really solid 5-6? And then you give him kind of a low-pressure role on the team to start. And if he's killing it, if he's dominating hitters, of course you build him up more. But I don't want to see any of these young guys at this point, considering especially the rest of the roster and the fact that we do have a lot of quality veterans on the team. There's no need to rush along the young guys. I would really like to see time taken with guys like Rocker, with Church, even with Jack Leiter. I feel like they need to take it easy, a little less pressure. I felt like last year with Leiter, it wasn't like they threw him in a pressure cooker by any means, but just keep the expectations low for those guys. Maybe it'll be freeing for them, and we can get some top performance out of some of these young guys, out of some of these rookies. We keep going. Thank you, everybody, tuning in. Appreciate all of y'all. Let me see what else I got on my notes here. We talked a lot about Rangers Broadcasting Network, $100 for the season, Rangers Sports Network, 15 Friday games on over-the-air channels via different affiliates. Looks like the generation of money coming from that, about $60 million in rights fees and related revenue from that venture. just different sources I checked. So team is aiming to generate about $60 million in rights fees and related revenue. So that's a nice bump. And it feels like throughout the offseason, the Rangers kind of had this in their mind, hence the spending that they did on guys like Evo and Jock Peterson and Chris Martin. Absolutely. Here's some recent signings. Rangers signed Matt Festa. This was today. They signed him to a minor league deal with an invitation to spring training. I kind of thought Festa would be a guy that was totally on his way out. They did DFA Festa, but brought him back, and he is going to bring additional depth to the bullpen. You would imagine that they will pull him up, but we'll see what happens. I don't think Matt Festa is going to be the big X factor for the Rangers this year, but I'm curious to see where he ends up landing in his role with the club. Nick Ahmed signed yesterday, veteran infielder, agreed to a minor league contract as well, and included an invite to spring training. Ahmed is 35, and he is well known for his defensive prowess. I think he's won a couple of Gold Gloves, if I'm not mistaken. So Nick Ahmed being signed by the Rangers just yesterday. We will see if he's able to carve out a role on the team. Beyond that, though, not a whole lot else to report. It's a pretty slow time of the year. Pitchers and catchers, I believe, in a couple of weeks here should be reporting back. Then things will start to heat up a little bit. Schedule for this month, let's go to the spring training schedule here. February 20th is the first game, it looks like, and that is between the Cubs and the Dodgers. February 20th, that's a Thursday. Spring training opens up for the Rangers on Friday, February 21st. They will be playing Kansas City. In surprise, should be great. And then from there, you got games pretty much every day until the end of March. It's going to be great. So we have got a lot of good stuff coming up here. Oh, pitchers and catchers reported this week. That's right. Everybody else, I'm sure, reporting pretty quickly. I forget they've kind of started things up a little bit sooner. It feels like spring training used to start a little bit later. Maybe I'm just imagining that. But pitchers and catchers reporting already. And then February 20th, spring training kicks off. Dodgers, Cubs, Rangers start on the 21st. Here we go. I'm excited. I can't imagine there's going to be a whole lot more big moves made. I think we all would love to see a closer. We would love to see the relief pitching get bulked up a little bit. But I kind of feel like the Rangers, for the most part, at least with big moves, are probably done. And I'm okay with it. Look, the bullpen, I think, is probably going to end up surprising, like a couple of you said. That has got to be the hope. We will see who emerges, especially in spring training. And I know it's a little bit different than the regular season. It's hard to totally predict. Okay, guys had a great spring training. It's hard to say, yeah, they're going to have a great regular season too. Sometimes it works out that way. Sometimes it doesn't. But we'll have our eyes peeled for players that are performing well and are coming on strong in the spring. And, of course, we'll be here to update you on all of that as the games begin. I couldn't be more excited for baseball to be back. It's fun finishing up with football. Of course, the NBA season is still in full effect as well. NBA trade deadline tomorrow. We'll be doing a little NBA. We'll be doing a lot of baseball stuff, little bit of football offseason stuff here and there, kind of on a case-by-case basis. So if the Cowboys or Longhorns have any big news or big moves to report, we'll definitely be live. Probably we'll do some more lives for the Dallas Mavericks, which I know is a bit of a polarizing topic for some at this point. But we'll be covering some Mavs games, especially as the season winds down. Anthony Davis perhaps making his debut tomorrow. Feels like maybe over the weekend is a little bit more likely, but we will be covering multiple different Mavs games and go into the NBA playoffs as well. So we got a lot of good stuff planned here at Right On Rangers. I know not everybody is a fan of all the teams that I cover. Appreciate y'all keeping up. You know, we always will talk just ball in general, whether it's baseball, football, basketball. So even if you're not a fan of the Rangers, come hang out. we'll definitely talk just about everything going on in the sport at some point. I will do maybe a little bit of college baseball. I don't cover it a ton, but again, big game, big moments, things like that, probably a little bit more. I don't think I'm going to be directing special pods each week to college baseball or anything like that, but maybe into College World Series. I'll definitely cover it if the Longhorns can get there. Y'all know Longhorns, Mavericks, Rangers, Cowboys. Those are the big four. So if the Longhorns are doing something special, I'll probably jump into college basketball, college baseball, but it'll be a little bit more case by case. Rangers and Mavericks, Cowboys, and Longhorns all in season, absolutely. During the off seasons, a little more case by case, and then college baseball and basketball about probably February, maybe for March Madness, we'll start heating up a little bit. So I'm down to just talk about any sport, to be completely honest. Those of y'all that have been with me for a while, you know that is true. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to all of the different sports that are going to be heating up. April and October are probably two of my favorite months of the year. October, you've got baseball, you've got college football, you've got NFL, hockey starting up, basketball starting up. It is a great time of year. April, I love though too. You've got playoffs for NBA, for NHL. You just had March Madness and all that craziness. Of course, baseball starting. So April, October, those are my two favorite months when it comes to sports. It's going to be great. I appreciate all of y'all hanging out. Thank you so much. Make sure that I didn't miss anything. Jack is definitely an interesting one. Jack Leiter, I think this is a make or break year for him. I hope that he ends up really breaking through for Texas, but I have my doubts. I'm keeping my expectations low on Leiter. Again, low pressure. Maybe he's a long man. Maybe he's a guy that you can throw into maybe that fifth or sixth spot in the rotation if somebody needs a break. I would really like to see Jack Leiter turn it around and live up to that number 2 pick from a few years ago. At some point, you got to deliver, especially when you're a guy that was drafted 2 overall in the first round. So I think this is a year Jack Leiter has got to show what he's got. We keep going. Texas. Oh, yeah, right on. Hunter Prime, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Awesome. I think I'm good. I think I'm caught up. Appreciate you guys. I'm going to sign off for the night. We've almost been going an hour. I will be back next Wednesday, of course, to talk more Rangers. We'll see if anything happens between now and then, news, transactions, anything notable. But for now, we are going to probably sign off until the Anthony Davis debut. I'm going to go live, talk about Anthony Davis's debut with the Mavs, whether that's tomorrow night after the Boston game or whether that's on Saturday. I'll go live, talk about that. If you're a fan of all teams in the DFW area like I am, that'll be the next time I'll be live. Maybe then Wednesday would be the next time. If anything comes up in the Cowboys offseason or Longhorns offseason, we'll get into that as well. But we start shifting gears here. Basketball, baseball, those are going to be the primaries moving forward. Super Bowl this weekend. I can't say that I really am cheering for either team. I wish both could lose, but give me the Chiefs. I just can't cheer for the Eagles. I know so many people want to see the Chiefs lose. I can't cheer for the Eagles. So go Chiefs. As much as I don't want to say it, beat the Eagles by 3 or 4 touchdowns, please. Have it be as humiliating of an experience as possible. That's where I'm at right now. All right, y'all. See you in a few days. We'll be here to talk Dallas Mavericks. Hey, if you wouldn't mind, share this person with somebody you know that's a big Rangers fan. Whether you're watching live right now or on the replay, you know someone that's a big Rangers fan. Share this video with them. Let's keep growing this good group of people we got. Talking baseball, talking Rangers baseball. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all of y'all too. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the likes, the comments, all that good stuff. Greatly appreciate the support. And I hope y'all have a great rest of the weekend. Thursday tomorrow, almost there, almost through the week. Have a good rest of your week. Good weekend ahead. And as I always say to end every show, God bless and go Rangers.